What's up, party people? Welcome to another edition of DJ to DJ. And today, I am really excited because we have a legend in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Pebo Rodriguez. What's up, my brother? How are you, man?
Very good, brother. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you. It's been an awful long time.
Right?
And I really love hooking up with my fellow DJs from back in the day, you know? And I think that we were lucky to have spun back in Los Angeles during the heyday of disco and new wave. We're just blessed, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, good to see you.
Likewise, man. It's been a minute. You and I mean, now we met on two different occasions. I met you back in the 80s at Franklin High School when you guys performed there. Okay.
Yeah, Richard was there, right?
Yeah. Very briefly, Richard was the one that brought you. Richard Vision was the dance commissioner for Franklin High School. Yeah. And he brought you in, and I met you briefly. We spoke just for a few moments before I was DJing, and you guys were going to perform. You guys were backstage. It was really cool. And then we met again in the early 2000s when I was on air at Viva 107.1. And
right.
Yeah. And so we had a good conversation that time. I think we spent like about an hour and a half together just chatting away, talking about music and remixes and all this kind of good stuff. So
my favorite subjects, brother.
There we go. So let's get into it. Let's get into the beginnings. So when was it that you discovered turntables and mixing and all that good stuff?
Well, it was in 1978 in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, muchacho, cuidado.
Yes. I actually had gone to PR to discover my roots. You know, my father's Puerto Rican, my mom is Spanish. And so I had already graduated from college, and I was working as a paralegal in the Attorney General's office and blah, blah, blah. And every time I went to Puerto Rico, something magical happened. And so I had to go back. And I kept telling everybody I was going to go back. So I went back. I rented out my pad. I sold everything I had, and me fui.
Órale.
And I went to Puerto Rico, and I was always in love with DJs. And I was a disco dancer, not like Joe Casillas. Like he took it to another viaje, right?
Right.
But I just used to enjoy dancing, but I wasn't like going to get in there and get in dance contests and all that bello, right?
Right.
So anyway, so there was an ad in the paper at Leonardo's Discotheque, which is the #1 club in San Juan in El Condado, looking for a DJ, spoke English, had a degree. I said, whoa, I think they're talking about me.
There you go.
So I applied, they trained me, and bomba, I started. And that's how I started my career.
Wow,
and,
so you went straight into a nightclub then?
I went straight into a nightclub, bro. I mean, yeah, I used to make little tapes, and when I used to go to parties, right? I used to take my cassette deck and my little custom-made disco tapes, but they weren't mixed, and so...
Right.
But I was already in love with disco music. I was buying 12 inches even before I was a DJ. And so that's how I started. I started in Puerto Rico, and you want more or what? What do you want?
Well, that's bomb, dude. That's a cool story. Now, when was it that you discovered how to beat mix? What was it the trick that you said that, okay, beat mixing?
I'm going to be, you know what? I'm going to bare my soul right there. I'm going to be honest, transparent. In the beginning, I sucked, bro. Oh my God. One of my best friends over there, he looked at me one time and he said, wow, that was like a mean train wreck, bro. I wouldn't even listen to the song that was playing. I was just listening in my headset, right? Bam! And the dance floor would like, what the fuck? But so, and then there was a DJ from New York who came to play on a Sunday for us, right? And he looked at my turntables and he goes, how do you mix with the rubbers on there? I go, I don't know. So then he took out a record, right? He took out a record and he cut the sleeve into two circles, and he threw them on and he started to mix. And I was watching him. I go, órale, that's firme, So then he just said, so he kind of showed me the basics. And then another buddy of mine, Rolando, who spun down the street, he says, you know what? Get two of the same record and just start mixing back and forth between the same song.
Exactly.
Try that. And that was it. That was the llave, bro. And once I learned that, I already knew BPMs, but that was the key right there.
Yeah.
And then forget it.
That's funny how you describe that, because that's exactly how I learned how to beat mix. And you know what? I chose Spin It by Sunbelt. Because remember the kick had its light, tight kick, but it had that little pew as the snare, And so to me, I found it so easy to match it up. And then I grabbed another record with a regular beat and mashed it up. And that's how I learned to beat mix. So it's crazy, man.
It was a Giorgio record, and those were pretty steady even back then.
Yeah.
And so that's how I did it. But believe me, they probably said, damn, that vato sucks,
I think we all, went through that at some point, but it's hard to see you, sucking at all, because I mean, man, dude, you are definitely a force to be reckoned with when it comes to DJing and stuff.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Oh, dude, thank you for everything that you taught us, because I remember, unfortunately at the time, I was not old enough to get into Fantasia, but my brother Alan was, and he used to go there all the time, and he would come back bragging about DJ Pebo's badass, man. This guy's awesome, and this and that, and he would always talk about the UFO at Fantasia. Yeah, man, I pictured this massive UFO falling from the ceiling and stuff, because he would just give me little bits and pieces, and I was a kid at the time, but you were just tearing it up, man, at that club.
Yeah, I love Fantasia. Fantasia was like, since it was a futuristic looking club, the DJ booth was a spaceship. We had synchronized lights. I had a badass light man, a bunch of them. Each one was chingon, and we would work together to create a live disco experience for the crowd, and that was our whole volo, was just to entertain to the bone, that was our viaje right back then,
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. I mean, it's like, what would you say was the club that you enjoyed spinning at most?
Oh, that's a tough one, because each one was special in its own way, Right. I mean, I was at the Pantera Rosa, and believe it or not, I was able to get fairly progressive there. I used to play Pink Floyd and mix it with the Scat Brothers, but maybe, I don't know, they were into it, and the after hours there was Feyo, I used to, you didn't have to play pop nothing, you could just like take them on a trip, buy new records, play them all night long. It was like crazy. Then from there I went to Fantasia, and Fantasia, you played everything. You played funk, you played pop, then you went up into hi-nrg disco, then did a mean new wave set, bam, 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 da-da-da. Lights out, the crowd
nuts.
Roars, bomba. Let's start them up all over again,
Yeah.
Then I left there briefly, and I went to Mr. J's. And Mr. J's, I went there, and I started playing Fantasia Viaje. It didn't work. That was a funk club. Cool. We'll do funk. We'll do funk all night long. And so I got functified over at Mr. J's, and I went back to I don't know if I'm going to tell you all the whole lineage, but anyway, Circus was really cool. I always wanted to work there. I worked there with Victor Flores, and I had the gay nights. I had Tuesdays and Fridays, and then Saturday in the back.
Okay.
And Victor had the rest of the nights, right? And Victor brought me in. And so, everybody says, the gay crowd, that's like, that's the most challenging, if you could conquer a great gay crowd, you're gaucho,
Yeah.
And so I did, and I loved it, but I was playing different high energy,
Yeah.
I was playing the regular stuff, but then you were playing some other really cool, different European viaje, right?
Yes.
And then the Tropicana. The Tropicana, I was there for 2.5 years, and it was a blur. Why? Because they treated me like a king. They paid me top dollar. They gave me a long old, like, I could have as many gente as I wanted, food, drinks, and everything else.
That's wild.
So I went there and it was a Volo, man. We got pedo all the time. They had the killer DJ booth, 3 turntables. The door was closed. Glass viaje right there staring at the crowd, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and then I went back to Fantasia and, you know, then I did a bunch of other little, you know, clubs in between, you know, special events, the Palace and Wings and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to say, but I would have to say, honestly, Fantasia was my home because I spent the most time there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just special to me, you know, because it just was, you know.
That's awesome. So, man, I mean, I remember the first night that I saw you was at Mr. J's. And I went down there, man, and I just heard you spinning. I mean, what I loved about you was your transitions. I mean, were just flawless because, I mean, you know, I was growing up with Richard, you know, Richard Vision, you know, with all us that we were starting, man. We were kids, man. We were, you know, we were in our late teens, early 20s. And, you know, we were still having some little offbeaters, but you synced it up clean because back in the day, I mean, it wasn't always all drum machines. I mean, some of the early disco stuff was still, you know, real drums and it wasn't synced up properly. And, you know, you had to really work those decks and you just always had it precise no matter what it was. And that was what I loved about your mixes, man.
Well, I have to say that in the early days, you know, like mixing classic disco from the 70s and the early 80s before drum machines became prevalent, you had to think creatively to make a mix.
Right.
You couldn't overlay for a long time. You could have a couple, but it was more or less like coming out, like maybe a horn was coming, you know, and then you out of the horn you would bring a vocal or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, just to kind of keep it going, but it wasn't like long overlays. And it wasn't until later on that I got into that pedal. But I have to say that I was a student of the mix. And I still am. I call it the art of the mix that I think is sometimes a little bit lost. No offense, DJs out there who aren't into like super mixing, you know, but and so I would go and I would listen to all the best DJs in Los Angeles on the nights that I was off, you know, like this cat called Mike Lewis that he used to spin at Studio One, and he was at Circus for a minute. The dude was awesome. I would go to New York, you know, and listen to all the best DJs. I go to Paradise Garage and I went to the Fun House and I went to 1018. At 1018, I was there when Noel made his debut, you know, for Silent Morning.
Yeah, Silent Morning, yeah.
And little Louis Vega was spinning. 3,000 kids, right, dancing. And what was really cool was they never did it for me, but they would chant, Little Louis, Little Louis,
Little Louis.
Cool. Oh, mean. But anyway, all right, let's get back on track, right?
There we go. So let's talk about technology and, you know, the mixers that you started off with. I mean, like back then, I mean, like I started, my very, very, very first mixer was a Radio Shack realistic mixer. Didn't even have a crossfader. Okay. And then I slowly transitioned into a Newmark, and my brother Marco, he had a Bozak. What was the mixers like when you got started back in the 70s?
You know, well, it was late 70s, early 80s. They were just faders, you know. They were faders like DJ my 800 here and my 1000 here. And so the only club that I spun at that had rotary was Circus.
Circus, yeah.
But I just so happened to have my own Bozak at home. And so it is a different feel. Definitely, you know. There's something about it that just, you know, the blend on a Bozak or a Yuri, you know, it's super clean for those super nice long mixes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could get down on a faders all night long, you know. So yeah. So to me, it didn't matter. Even if the turntables were funky, it didn't matter because I spun on so many different mixers. So the mixer wasn't like a big deal to me.
Right.
You know, some guys, I gotta have rotary. You know.
No.
I gotta have rotary. Bozak. Oh my God.
Gotta have it. Yeah.
Gotta have it. But you know what? You could have a Bozak, but if you can't mix, well.
Yep. I remember I got to work briefly with Frank Del Rio, rest in peace.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
over at the Shark Club. And I remember the first night that we went there. He heard me over at Camachos in the City of Industry. I was
Mm-hmm.
spinning on Sundays, and he walks
Spun
up.
there.
He sent this guy over, and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "You know Frank Del Rio?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "That guy's badass." He goes, "He wants to talk to you. He's sitting over there." And I was like, "Órale." And I walked over, and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "What do you think of working with me at the Shark Club on Saturday nights?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, man." He goes, "Yeah, just you'll be opening up and boom." And I was like, "Órale, let's go." So we went, and he was all pissed off the first night because they didn't have a Bozak. And I was like, I'm like, I'd seen it once at Circus when my brother spun there, and I said, so, I don't know, bro. I mean, you got to talk to the owners about that one.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah,
was
some
also
guys,
amazing guy, man.
Oh, Frank Del Rio, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a really good friend of mine. Uh, and I never had a beef with Frank. Him and I lived together for a while.
Mm,
We did some remixes together.
yeah.
We voloed together in New York and in Miami, and had good laughs. I knew his family, fairly well, and
Yeah.
yeah, FDR, man.
He
I'll
was
send you. I have
badass,
a I
man.
have a really cool picture of him and I. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So now that we're talking about remixes, at what point did you transition from DJing to start producing and remixing and all that stuff?
Well, I worked at JDC Records,
Yes.
and at JDC Records, I pioneered the first disco mixers, right? The JDC
Mm-hmm,
mixers,
mm-hmm.
and we we did those. I don't know how to say it other than we did them in the warehouse.
What are they?
I brought my two turntables and my mixer, and Jim brought his 2-track reel to reel, and we just did them a la brava right there. He
Straight
would just
up.
grab records and do them. So then Jim licensed Flashlight on a Disco Night.
Okay.
And that was my very first remix, my first foray into the studio. And I met Dave Storrs, and Dave Storrs and I later on we formed Electro Beat Records, and we signed Ice-T and Kid Frost and a couple other little guys. And so it was at that point that I used to do a lot of edits. I love to do edits,
Hmm.
and I would always take my reel to reel with me in the club and do my special mixes, play my special edits.
Right.
And so I was more of an editor, although I did remix a bunch of records.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it was bomb. I
yeah,
mean that remix of Flashlight by Ruffle was awesome, man. I mean, it's like just just hearing what you were doing, and I remember hearing a couple of edits when I was at Mr. J's, and a couple of times that I heard you, because it was like you would spin a song, and we were all used to the song that you're playing, but then all of a sudden it was just a little bit different. You were getting
right.
in and out of it a little bit quicker, and it was cut clean. And I just remember saying to myself, how the heck did he do that? How did he jump from here to there? It was like, and back then I couldn't wrap my head around it. So it was like later on I understood editing and stuff, but you were doing it from the get-go, man.
Yeah, no, I love to edit. I still edit. I still edit every week. I do mixes here at the pad, and then I get in there, and there's a lot of these songs they repeat the same thing forever.
Yep.
I said that's too much.
Yeah.
So I just cut that, like the boring parts down, or the parts that repeat down. But I still love to edit, although I do it digitally now. But
That's awesome.
back then it was tape. We were cutting tape.
Yeah.
If you wanted something to repeat itself, you had to like if you wanted to repeat 4 times, well, you record it 4 times, then you cut it 4 times, and then you put those pieces together, and it was
That's funny.
time consuming, but it was cool.
My
Right,
father,
move on, peeps, come on.
my father was worked in radio from since before I was born, and he taught me to edit on reel to reel, and it was funny back in the day, to have to mark it with the little chalk marker, and then splice it and then put it together. And I remember one time accidentally hitting the freaking dump button, and that freaking reel to reel just started going and going. Like, oh man,
I've done that.
It's
I've had
wild.
tape all over the place, but
Crazy. So
yes.
at what point now you integrate with Martin Bijan and the guys from Stop? how did that come about? How did you guys all get together and produce the songs that you guys produced?
You got all night?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Here's what was happening. You know, I was working at JDC Records. I was the 12-inch buyer, and I bought for Music Plus and for the warehouse and for everybody, you know. And I would like get my records from the record pool. I would tell Jim, these are the badass ones. These are the ones that we're playing. We would order them from New York, and then we put them in Warehouse and Licorice Pizza and, you know, all the stores.
All the stores, yeah.
And so Bijan, the keyboard guy, he started up Crystal Promotions. They had a couple of stores, him and his family, and they started selling 12-inch. So we would come and buy them. And then Danny Rodriguez, who was a part of Stop, and he also was working over there at JDC with me. He went to Bijan's place, or we both went to Bijan's place after, and he goes, hey, listen to this. So he started playing like hip hop, Latin hip hop stuff. You know, he had these keyboards set up in this back room. We're going, dang, Bijan. Bijan was getting down, right?
Uh-huh.
So then I had to take, so I left, within a week or two, I left for Miami because I was promoting my Kid Frost record, Terminator, right?
Terminator, yeah.
And so when I went, I got back 2 weeks later, and Danny says, man, me and Martin and Bijan, we put together this 3-track of this song. Wow. You got to hear it. It's blowing up at Fantasia because Martin was at Fantasia at the time. I said, cool. So they gave me the cassette. I listened to it, and it was raw. And I said, there's a little magic here, right? So then I went to Fantasia to hear Martin play it, and I said, damn. But this was before the version that everybody else knows, right? So then Danny and Martin and Bijan, they came and they said, we want to put it on your Electro Beat Records. My Electro Beat Records was like it was like a hip-hop, Latin funk rap label, Ice-T, Kid Frost. Stop, didn't make sense. I said, let me show you guys how to do it. So Dave and I showed them how to form a record label, where to press up records, how to print labels, and where to master. And then what we told them is, why don't you guys come into the studio? We had a 16-track studio, and we'll record it here for you, and we'll mix it for you.
Wow. So
that's what they did. So Martin and Bijan came down, and we sunk up the drum track and Bijan's keyboards, and then Danny came in and he played the live cowbell and stuff, to give it that live feel, And then Dave and I, we mixed it, and then we went and we had Bernie Grunman. Do you know who Bernie Grunman is?
I never met him. I've heard of him, but never met him.
Bernie Grunman used to master Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 and everybody who's anybody. If you wanted a mean mastering viaje, if you had feria, you went to Bernie Grunman in Hollywood. So we went to Bernie, right? And we talked to him, and we talked him into like mastering. And he used to master our records for us anyway. Right. So, hey, just one track on one side. And we explained the 12-inch concept to him, right? And Bernie did it. So nice. That record and the Kid Frost records, the Ice-T records were all mastered by Bernie Grunman. This was before Dre went there and anybody went there.
Wow.
But anyway, I don't know if that means anything. It probably does.
Hey, for DJs, it does, man.
Okay. Bernie Grunman, look him up.
I will.
I don't know if he's still around,
sure,
though,
man.
But Bernie Grunman.
That's awesome, man. That's an awesome story. Yeah,
so anyway,
I remember.
So that's how, so we basically, Dave and I said, listen, this is how you do it. Because can you imagine if we would have put it on our label, right? And we would have sold at 300,000 plus or whatever, then we'd have to account to them, and we'd have to collect the feria. And I guess we could have done it, but it was just so much better to show them how to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it was a good run, man. Like I said, man, I really enjoyed the performance that you guys did over at Franklin High School when we brought you over, and you guys were like all over the place, man. It was just blowing up. Bro. Wake Up took off, and then Rendezvous. It was just like boom, 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 and it was like you guys were just bomb, man. And it was fun watching you guys. And for me, it was really exciting to see you perform as a DJ and then perform as an artist, which was really cool.
Yeah, we had a really cool 2-year run. The feria was flowing, the limos, the notoriety. Power 106 called us looking for us to get Wake Up, right? they wanted to play it. Then Power 106 just blew it up. Miami blew it up. Mexico blew it up. And, you know, we had a hit on our hands. We did, you know, instrumental. That was cool, you know.
It's just, I mean, the whole concept of the song, you know, I mean, just as soon as you hear it and as soon as that clapping comes in, I mean, to this day, people still go crazy. As soon as I play it, boom, there go las palmas, you know what I mean, up in the air. I mean, it's just a badass song. I mean, everything about it is clean.
Yeah, it's definitely, it continues, you know, it still has life like a lot of the high energy records. And it's a record they play at weddings and quinceañeras and, you know.
Still at the clubs.
It
still goes off when they go off on a flashback tangent. You're guaranteed that they're going to spin it, you know?
Yeah.
It's wild. So what would you say your favorite style of music is right now? What genre? What, you know, of all the stuff that you're hearing out there, what is your go-to? What is the stuff that you listen to when you're not spinning?
Are you talking about like music different from dance music?
Yeah, you know, what is it that you're into? What do you enjoy listening to most when you're not DJing or producing, for that matter?
I'm a rocker.
Really?
I am a rocker, dude.
I mean, I
grew up in LA, grew up with rock and roll music. You name the group, and I've seen them. I've seen Led Zeppelin 4 times. I've seen Black Sabbath 3 times. I've seen, you know, Grand Funk Railroad. I've seen The Who. I've seen David Bowie when he first came here for the very first time. I've seen Rod Stewart, Johnny Winter, Allman Brothers, Linda Ronstadt. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so I was really, before I got into DJing, into dance music, I was a rocker, and I'm still a rocker, you know? So that's what I kind of like listen to, you know?
That's cool.
Elton John, Paul McCartney. I mean, forget about it.
That's why it's funny, because I wouldn't expect that to hear that from you, especially, you know, with the music that you produce and stuff. And it's wild, but it's interesting how there are some people and DJs that their influences, producers and stuff, do come from rock groups, but yet they're producing dance music, which is interesting. It's wild.
Yeah, that's I mean, I was a salsero too, you know, and I mean, I really like all kinds of music. I mean, I've got classical music and you know, all that stuff, but I'm really a rocker, you know, and actually when it comes to rock music, I was like into not so much as alternative, but progressive rock music, Gentle Giant and groups like that, you know, that kept it going, you know, Yes, groups like that, you know, Jethro Tull.
That's cool. That's cool. So I got another question for you. The you know, there's always the debate, okay, and this goes from the new generation to the older generation, as to, you know, DJs that spin on turntables to DJs that spin on controllers. You know, we were just talking about this with Freddie Morales, and we were talking about how there's the DJs that say, you know, if you've never spun on turntables, you're not a real DJ. What's your take on that?
Okay. You know, I've been confronted with this, you know, and I trip on it, you know. I was one of the fortunate DJs. I spun for about 12 years straight, vinyl, punto, right? And besides that, when I spun, I started at 8 o'clock, and most of the clubs I spun at on the weekends went to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So vinyl, I love spinning vinyl. I love it, right? And so when it comes to the electronic stuff, because I have a killer controller right here, this is my second one. And this bad boy, I used to do a lot of tricks live.
Yep.
I just did. I just like doing tricks. And that's why I liked doing edits, you know, because I wanted to entertain the crowd. I just didn't want them to listen to a DJ, mix into the intro, play the body of the song, mix out of the outro. Yeah. All night long. It's like, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And so what I can do with this bad boy right here live, I could edit on the fly. I could phase shit. I could double, triple stuff, quadruple stuff. I could do all kinds of stuff live that I had to do before by editing, right?
Yeah.
Now, What I tell DJs is this, that this, the turntables, right? I got my 1200s right here, bad boy right here. I got 3 of them. I'll mix on 3 turntables all night long. This is to me like almost kind of like the acoustic guitar, and this is the electric guitar.
There we go. I like that.
And that's the way I kind of look at it. And so you could either reject the electric guitar if you want and saying, you know what, vinyl is the only way to go. And that's cool. That's cool. Hey man, if you believe in vinyl like that, and I know DJs that only spin vinyl.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's cool, man. That's cool. I'll spin vinyl. But I dig this too because that takes me to a whole nother viaje, right?
Exactly.
And so
as long as you're not using the sync button, then you're great.
Yeah, and then that's another thing. I mean, people get accused of using the sync button, and so I don't use the sync button because to me that's not mixing.
Right.
I gotta feel the mix.
Exactly.
And so I don't, I don't put that bad boy on.
Yeah. They really shouldn't even put it in there, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I understand for DJs that are maybe just starting off and they don't understand the concept of it and want to resort to that. But I've heard when DJs use that sync button and they get a little crazy. They get a lower BPM hip hop song and mix it up with a track that's at 135 or something, and it just sounds horrendous. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I've got like a 2% plus range that I like to stay in, or I used to with the turntables. You can cheat a little bit more with the
controller,
with the Pioneer, with the controller, simply because it has a feature in there that doesn't allow the vocals to sound mousy, right? But that used to be my limit, 2.5% on the turntables, and I wouldn't go below. I hated to go below the midpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, 2.5, that was right around where I like to be. Give it a little bit more,
Yeah.
just a little bit more.
And it makes sense because, you adding that little bit of a speed to it gave it a little bit of energy, but you're right. Going beyond that, then, if you start going a little too fast, then you're sounding like a chipmunk on vinyl. And then if you go too slow, then you're sounding all slow. And it wasn't right. But, I mean, thank God for DJs like you that taught us the right way to do it, man.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I've always been a student, and I still, how do you say it? I go onto YouTube, and I'm constantly looking for mixers, right? Mm-hmm. Constantly looking for DJs that mix, the art of the mix.
Yeah.
And there's not that many that I hear anyway, because I'm looking for them. I am looking for them. I know, at those big venues, those big old raves, those guys, they're pre-recorded. I know for a fact because a relative worked at a lot of these big ones setting up the villages. And I understand. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine double beating, and you got like 200,000 people dancing. All of a sudden your mix is all jacked up.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's a lot of YouTube videos that are popping up now at these big old events that are showing that they're not even touching the decks, and some of them are not even plugged in. They just, you see on the controller, you can see if it's spinning or not. It was different on a record, because you had to put the needle on. But on a controller, I mean, you could just pretend you're doing it, and that's that. And a lot of these videos are starting to pop up of, these big name DJs that are doing that. The
biggest.
Yeah, and it's
no, I've seen them. I've seen them. I watch, and I just think it's a shame, that they should go live, and if they fuck up, they fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is what it is.
I mean, it's a family show that I just like.
No, we're good.
It's YouTube. Gonna censor me now?
We'll put a little beep in on post or something.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry about that, kids.
For the children at home.
For the children at home.
There we go.
Uncle Peebs made a mistake, and he wasn't even drinking.
Orale, and what time do we start drinking? Right after this, right?
Right after this, bro.
So what's going on with you these days? What are you up to? What are you working on? What's happening with DJ Pebo?
Okay. I really, really dig new disco.
Okay.
Are you into new disco?
I'm into everything, man. I
Okay,
love
I
all types of
love new
music.
disco. That's my thing right now.
Sweet.
And so I'm doing mixes. I don't know if you know my buddy Rick Chaz Gonzalez.
Yes, yes.
Okay, he has a little radio show called circusradio.com.
Mm-hmm.
He just added the Alexa feature, so you're going to be able to say, Alexa, play circusradio.com. And so I'm doing new disco mixes for him and some
Nice.
classic disco mixes also.
Very
And
cool.
so that's basically what I'm doing. Um, I just dig the new disco vibe, and
Yeah.
it's kind of housey too. I love house music too.
Yeah.
It's a little hard for me. Don't get offended, anybody, but it's hard for me to play those old disco records all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, some of them are, you know, let's face it, they came out in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that?
Been a while.
40 years, I think.
Just a little bit. Just about that.
Yeah. And so can you imagine? I have I've got, for example, here's a test pressing of J.D. Hall, Number One
Number
Lover.
One
right?
Lover.
How long have I had that? Okay. Playing with Love, test pressing. How long have I had that?
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
Two of Hearts, original, Stacy Q, before Atlantic picked it up.
Wow.
What are we talking about here? Look at this, 12-inch of Souvenirs, Voyage.
Disco.
Come on. And look at this one. Love Is In You, the classic, the all-time
Oh,
number
my
one disco
gosh.
record. Original 12-inch that they gave me at Casablanca Records in 1980.
Wow.
These records are old. And I know people, they still love their disco, and I love it too, but I just liked playing other stuff too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and there's a lot of DJs that have come along, younger DJs, up different generations, and they're playing all the old disco. So, and you go on Facebook, and a chingo of DJs are playing old disco.
Yeah, right now they're going crazy, man. It's funny
So-
because during this whole quarantine thing, my wife was the one that talked me into it and said, I mean, why don't you go on and do a rock en español set and this and that. And for me, it's like the same thing, I mean, I got burnt out of the rock en español from spinning it for so long, and I wanted to get away from it. Me, I'm like a Depeche Mode, New Wave. That's my groups. Those are my that's my style that I love. I play everything, but like you, I wanted to get away from that, especially from that stigma of everybody saying, "Oh, Fernando G, the rock en español DJ." I didn't want to be the rock en español DJ.
Right.
That wasn't me.
Yeah, no, it was for a long time I couldn't play Babe We're Gonna Love Tonight. I couldn't do it.
I
Couldn't
don't
do it.
blame you.
I couldn't play Spin It, and there's like a handful of those records that were tough for me to play. So I don't mind throwing one in with playing, I mean, because there's so much disco music.
Yeah.
There's so much, there's just a lot of it. And, but, get stuck on, there's about 20 or 30 or 40 records that, they're on this treadmill,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so.
It's wild. So what are some of the DJs? Who is there anybody out there right now that you would say, you know what, this cat I like, this guy's bomb? Who would you say that might be?
Well, you know what? I really like Roger Sanchez, and he's been around a long time, but I like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this other guy that I've been listening to. Let me see if I can think of his name. Who's kind of like? Did you see Richard like about a month or so ago?
On
He
his
did
live stream?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's kind of like Richard, but even a faster version. And this guy would have like all four faders up, man. And
Órale.
he was spinning and he was doing this and that, but he didn't do it with headset. And I go, how the heck did he do it?
Wow. Just looking at the waves, the waveform.
I guess so. He was just, I don't know how he did it, but he's pretty good. I really like the Purple Disco Machine. Those guys are really cool. And I really like this guy, Bob Sinclair. He's out of France. Have you heard Bob Sinclair?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Bob Sinclair is really cool. And let's see. Those are the main guys that I've been listening to. I still listen to Louis a little bit, although he's very jazzy,
Mm-hmm.
but he's cool,
It's got that cool vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could think of this guy. But, hey, I can't think of him, man.
It happens.
It'll come to me.
It happens. So what have you been doing during this whole pandemic and quarantine and having to stay in? What have you been doing to stay busy?
Okay. Well, you know that I worked at Thump Records, right?
Yes.
Okay. I worked there for many, many years. I produced over 200 compilations. I did it all there. Then when the MP3s came in and Napster and all that, it just dug a grave for CDs and for that whole world.
Right.
And so Thump Records, man, they were going bam, 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 bam. They started cutting my salary. Bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
I had to sell my pad. I just had to change up everything. So I went back to school. I went to Puerto Rico. I got a master's in teaching English as a second language, ESL. And so I was in Puerto Rico for 5 years, believe it or not. That was a long time. Yeah. And so I've been back here 6, and I'm an English professor. So I teach English at San Diego City College and at Miracosta College over here in Oceanside.
Nice.
So that's what I do. And, for the last few months, we've had to morph into being online teachers, which means a lot of online classes to learn how to teach online. So
yeah, it's a different ballgame. It's funny because my boy is the same thing. I mean, they're starting next week, and we're doing all these virtual meetings with the teachers and the principal and stuff, and it's kind of wild, man. It's kind of weird to see how it's all evolved, and hopefully we'll get through this sooner than later. But it is what it is, the sign of the times, man. But the good thing is that during this time for me, I was able to teach my boy how to beat mix the exact same way how I learned to beat mix back in the day. So he's 11 and he's having fun with it. And just the other day, he comes up, he says, "Hey, Dad, look, I saw this tutorial on YouTube for GarageBand, and look what I came up with." And he showed me these little beats that he came up with. Dude, my heart sank. I was like, that's my boy, Freaking loved
brother,
it.
Teach him.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, listen, brother, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me on this little thing I call a DJ to DJ. It was really an honor to have you here, man. It's just bomb. And for everybody watching, as always, we're going to have links to Pebo's, Facebook and everything in the description. So you can check him out, his videos and stuff. It's great stuff, man. And what are the last words you want to tell, up and coming DJs? A little words of wisdom from Pebo.
Well, I would hope that as a DJ that you feel it inside, and that it comes from a creative, spiritual place, and not that you see the excitement of it, or that you want to be a DJ because so and so's a DJ. And, I would say that if it's in your heart to pursue it, go for it. If you're a person that likes music, likes listening to music, ever since you were, a little chavito, go for it. Go for it. That's
Sweet.
what I would say. Yeah.
Great words of wisdom from the master himself, Pebo Rodriguez. Thanks again, brother. I really appreciate you.
Okay. By the way, I'm developing. I have djpebo.com, but it's not flying yet. And I'm still mixing and still doing it. But you know what, Fernando G, thank you so much, man. This was so cool.
Oh, man. Thank you for agreeing to it. I reached out to you a couple of weeks ago and I said, he's probably too busy. And when you responded, I was like, oh, yes. I was all excited, brother. So thanks again, man, from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you. Peace. Again, if you're watching this, if you like this DJ to DJ session, make sure you hit the like button, of course, the subscribe button, click the bell so that we get you notified when we're up and running again. Again, brother, thank you. God bless. Please stay safe. And hopefully we will see each other in person next time.
All right, brother. Take care.
Likewise.